Alrighty, we are now live. Thank you everyone for joining us here at the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation community. I am super excited that we're going to be here today hanging out, talking with two amazing authors / editors. They will introduce themselves a bit. But if you're not familiar with me, I am Melissa. I am the community manager, so you'll see me hanging out over in our Patreon community and on our Facebook pages, Instagram stories, all of the places over there. I'm really excited. We have so much fun with the Love Books Tea Party that we had about a month ago that I thought we need to keep this going and hang out with everyone here live so that we can hear back from everyone in our community. A couple quick announcements, and then I will let our guests introduce themselves. But if you have not voted yet over in our community, we have voting for the Chawton chickens. So these are chickens that are living on the Chawton property. They are living with Millie, Jane Austen's 6th great niece, and she is kindly letting us name them. We came up with some Austen character names. She tells me they all have very unique personalities, which I think is amazing. So we'll see how the names come into play and if they live up to their Austen character names. So we have that going on. And then also we have released our bookmarks and book plates for the community for this month. I will show you those at the end, so hang around for that. But without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get to know our guests that we have with us today. It looks nice and sunny where both of you are. I'm very jealous. It is cloudy and raining and freezing cold here in Columbus for me. So either you're fooling me with amazing lighting or it really is sunny where you are at. But we have both Christinas. So Christina Moreland, why don't you go ahead and introduce us and let us know what it is you do?
Thank you so much, Melissa. It's actually not sunny here. It's also raining and freezing here in Western Massachusetts. I'm Christina Moreland. I am the author of 4 Austen-esque novels and 3 short stories, which I got to work with the amazing Christina Boyd that you see up there as my editor. And overall, just a great admirer of Jane Austen and so excited to be here. I'm grateful to Melissa and to the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation. I mean, I think this mission to bring literacy to people all around the world is, I don't know Jane Austen personally, of course, I wish I did, but I imagine it is one that she would dearly love and support. So
absolutely. And are those your books sitting next to you? You could give us a quick little preview.
These are actually Jane Austen books.
Okay.
Somebody brought me a tiny little copy of Pride and Prejudice from England once. Adorable. I have not been to England yet myself. And there's got Jane Austen's letters and all of her novels there.
I love it.
Actually, one of my novels, which is I write a little too much. I'm a little too wordy. It's a really thick book. And so I'm using it to hold up I have this really old lamp and it's about to tip over. So my novels are on the floor holding up the lamp right now. It's that book, yes.
It's functional and entertaining.
That's right. It's a door stopper or a lamp holder.
There you go. There you go. Thank you to everyone that I see popping on. Feel free to let us know where you are joining us from. And we will see your comments over on the side. So Christina Boyd, why don't we let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us if it's truly sunny or you're faking it.
Oh, we must totally be faking it. I'm looking out the window here and it is total overcast here in the Pacific Northwest. I live about 5 miles south of the Canada border and it's typical March. It came in like a lion and it's still thinking it's a lion. We probably won't see nice weather, like consistent nice weather till June. We like to call that January. So by the end of June, we'll maybe start to see some. Anyway, so it's not nice. I am a writer, an editor, an artist, and a great reader of Jane Austen's works. Like I said, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I have 2 young adult Boydlings. I'm married to my dear Mr. B, and I have a silver Labrador. So if you hear something grumbling in the back, that's her. She's a little, she's like my toddler who just needs to come in and disrupt everything when I'm on the phone or on Zoom or something. She's just a meme in herself. I have edited over 50 books in the last 10 years. I've self-published 5 multi author of anthologies. Christina Moreland's been in some, and I have written my own first book that I am querying for agent representation.
Yeah.
So that's,
I think if anyone is looking to kind of dip their toes into fan fiction, your anthologies are a great place to start. I know for me, they were some of the first fan fiction that I read. If anyone is interested in that, check out Christina. And then you can jump into Christina Moreland's bigger books that she has when you're ready to totally immerse yourself. So real quickly here, I just want to give a shout out. We have Tarina joining us from Tennessee. We have Hazel in Denmark. Hello again, Hazel. We have Sophie in North Georgia. She says Christina is an awesome editor. Shout out to you, Christina. We have Karen from Kentucky. We have Jan from sunny suburban Chicago. Someone has some sun. We have Nicole from San Diego, California. And we have Carolyn, our founder from Australia, is with us. And we have Elaine from England joining us. So welcome to everyone. If you join us later, feel free to let us know where you're watching this from at a later date as well. All right, so I think we've got through all the introductions. Shall we get into our topic of the day? Let's talk about some fierce females in Jane Austen, and we can maybe have a healthy debate in the comments. We can see who agrees, if we disagree. Let's just have some fun with it, hang out, and talk some Jane Austen. Anyone want to volunteer with the first topic to throw on out there, and we can jump on in?
Well, I wondered, this question of the forward-thinking women and who are Jane Austen's most forward-thinking women. I was just curious if, like, maybe with no explanation, did you each want to kind of give like your top one or two? I would just love to hear if we have very similar ideas about that or different ideas.
Do you want to go, Christina?
Sure. I'll go. Of course, Elizabeth Bennet is number one. Everybody has to agree with her choices that she made. She turned down 2 marriage proposals. She says things that she sticks up for her family. And I mean, she just does all of these things that maybe are not necessarily what a Regency woman is expected to do. And I'm on the fence about this one. I kind of like Mary Crawford as a possibility, even though she does things that are selfish and without regret. But I also think that because she has her own money, she is a quick-witted, fast-talking. She's a great antagonist for the book. I think she made the book for me anyway. Yeah. But I feel like she likes to disrupt things, and she is trying to put people off and make them uncomfortable so they aren't going to be just living a standard life, or she's just trying to like see how she can elevate her own life. So again, because she's maybe doing that for her own selfish purposes, that might not necessarily be a modern thinking woman. Maybe she is just more selfish. And I just like to put my fan fiction opinions on her and create, a different idea in my head about how she is. But so going that way, I also think Anne Elliot, she definitely is is my number 2 most forward thinking, just because she may have as a young person, she was persuaded, but then over the years, then she came to, what do I want to say? She helped me out here. What do I, she
definitely
came into her own.
Yeah,
she did come into her own, and she realizes, she puts her own judgment forward, and she makes these choices, not for other people. And to make those choices, like she didn't marry who is now her brother-in-law. She rejected him. She made these choices after she rejected Captain Wentworth, as she started to realize what she wanted in life and what was going to make her happy. Then she did mature, and she did make some choices that I think were more forward-thinking than would be expected for a woman of that age, of that period.
why don't anyone that's watching go ahead and leave your answers of who you think is the most forward-thinking woman in the comments. But
I have to apologize. I am the wordiest person. I don't know.
You're fine.
That's great.
Edited down myself. So,
not at all.
Warning out for the people out there.
So this one really surprised me because I've been kind of thinking about it all week, and I thought I would say Elizabeth Bennet, but I have to disagree with you, Christina. I actually landed on Emma, and one of the reasons is I feel like Elizabeth made decisions for herself. I guess Mr. Collins was more like, she wasn't thinking of her family, she was thinking of herself, so that does make her a forward woman. But I think the way that Emma acts to Harriet, I don't know why I was really thinking about their relationship a lot this week. She, besides herself not really seeking out a husband and kind of shoving everyone else at Harriet, the fact that she saw potential for Harriet to make a match outside of her place in society, I think is very forward thinking, that she was trying to match her up with these other people along the way, or even see the possibility that some of these men would consider Harriet for where her station was at in life. And that, you know, we often see, like, you know, we think of the Bennet sisters as like, marry somebody for stability. And Emma was kind of comfortable in her own skin with the stability that she had. She wasn't looking for marriage. Like, I feel like she would have been okay even if Mr. Knightley didn't come along. She's like, I'm good. I've got my own place. You know, my dad's here. I'm comfortable. She was very settled in the life that she had, which I feel like that was forward thinking for a woman during that time period. I also agree very much with Elizabeth Bennet as well, but I kind of came to the thought of I would pick Emma in just a uniqueness that the other Austen characters don't have, with her being confident in her own skin and thinking that women could maybe break outside of where they were at in their station in life.
Hear that, Karen Cox in Kentucky? What do you think? What do you think?
Well, I saw Karen, maybe it was Karen and a couple of other people mentioned Mrs. Croft, Sophia Croft, you know, as a minor character, but as an important example, you know, and of course her quote about, you know, where we get the idea of rational creatures from, right? And so I think, you know, that's a really good candidate. But, you know, when I was thinking about this, I was trying to decide what is the definition of forward thinking. And one of the things I kept coming up against was the fact that I don't know enough about Austen to be sure. I was curious if Austen was really even trying to write about forward-thinking women, or if she was just herself acting as a forward-thinking woman. And that in the process, she developed these characters because, you know, she's somebody who's growing up reading all these novels in which women are either depicted as, you know, perfect moral creatures, you know, very sentimental, but, you know, just like the highest of morality, or these creatures who have been sort of wrecked by sin or have fallen. And, you know, I think she laughed at that and decided to depict women as she thought they really were. And that in itself, I thought was really forward thinking. And so what I love about your answers, Christina and Melissa, is that both Emma and Elizabeth, they're women who make mistakes along the way, and they grow and they come to acknowledge and change because of those mistakes. And in that respect, I mean, I don't know if that's forward thinking, like progressive, or like modern, like we would think today. It's maybe just human nature, but I love that. And I think in some definition of forward thinking, maybe we could put that. I asked my daughter, who's 13, and I'm really lucky because she's been very patient with me and allowed me to read a lot of Austen to her. I've read Pride and Prejudice and Emma and Northanger Abbey, and you know, she just has really loved hearing the novels, and we get to talk about them. I asked her what she thought in terms of the definition of forward thinking, and she was saying, you know, it's not a woman who just accepts what is, but who sees the world as it maybe should be or could be. And so, you know, in that respect, again, I don't know that they were consciously thinking this, but I think Elizabeth Bennet, of course, I do think fits that. You know, it's really interesting. I hadn't considered your point, Melissa, about Emma and the way she's, even against her own biases, pushing against maybe the socioeconomic thing there. Okay, but my second choice besides Elizabeth, and this will be controversial, I actually kind of think Fanny Price could qualify, because here, as meek as she seems, And I know maybe Mary Crawford would really disagree with this, but like she is somebody who, when she's presented with this proposal, the way it should be, that she should of course accept Henry's offer. She should of course accept the offer of somebody who has money, who's handsome, who has status. The world that she believes should be doesn't hold for that kind of relationship, because I think she understands there's something a little bit rotten at the core of it. Maybe, Henry, I love all the fan fiction out there that, redeems Henry, but I think in Austen's book, at least in Mansfield Park, I think he's not in her lifetime going to be redeemed exactly in that way. So I think that Fanny, by saying no, Elizabeth also by saying no, by, saying there's something more to marriage than just these things that people tell us. I think that they both could qualify.
Absolutely. I think it adds to the funness, if that's a word, of all of this, in the fact that we don't have Jane Austen's opinion. So we can speculate on what was she truly doing, rather than, some contemporary authors where they tell us what they were thinking. It adds to the health of the debate and the way that we see these characters in so many different perspectives, because we read characters for empathy, but also hearing other people's opinions makes us see things in a completely new light.
I read somewhere, and I wish I could remember when and where it was, and so if someone knows, or if they're like, you're totally wrong, tell me. But I had read somewhere that Cassandra, her sister, had wanted Jane to write a totally different ending for Mansfield Park, that she wanted Fanny to marry the curate.
Henry Crawford. Oh
no. She wanted Fanny to marry Henry, and she wanted Mary Crawford to marry
Edmund.
Fanny Simpson. Edmund.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah. But I don't think that Mary Crawford would be happy with Edmund at all on that. I don't think that would work. But I feel like I read that somewhere. But just to piggyback on some of what you were thinking, another thing that I had read somewhere that because like Austen had lived in a time in a society, patriarchal, that not so different. Well, yes, much different than our own, but in a society that was shaped by British imperialism. So I feel like some of what she said, because she couldn't necessarily, because she was a woman writer, she couldn't necessarily write all of that super clear in her books. Mm-hmm. So she layered those thoughts in. She made it as a woman writer. She wasn't overt necessarily in it. She would lay these clues, like Collins as the male heir. This ridiculous person was going to come in, and he's going to be the long-born heir. He shouldn't have been the rightful heir, but he was, because of just how society was. Right. That women's choices in marriage, and again, she puts these ridiculous people up that they're supposed to and they have what is their right? They have the one right of refusal. So I feel like she, in all of her stories, she does layer those types of things that were her opinions, and that if maybe she were in this period of time, she might be on this show now, like on her soapbox and saying, and this is how it should be, and like and these are the ways that you should try and improve yourself. But I think that just because she didn't want to be edited or canceled back in the day, that she had other ways of putting her information out there.
That's a really interesting
idea.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I also want to point out this one from Elaine. So Eleanor Dashwood is quite forward-thinking to me, especially the way she looks for a place for her and her mothers and her sisters to live. I think Eleanor really does kind of take on that man role to the extent that she could during the time period of becoming the person taking care of the family, keeping it all together. So that's a great point. I think Eleanor, we could make a case for her as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think that's a wonderful point, Elaine. And I think that, the other thing that Eleanor Dashwood does is that she represents, of course, sense or rationality, or she's very stoic. And again, when you think about Austen writing in the context of women in popular culture, at least being portrayed as very sentimental and as that sort of the highest ideal for them, for Austen to write this this main character, this heroine that is not sentimental, who could still love. She has sentiment, but she doesn't let it overcome her. And I think that is, very forward thinking, especially for that time.
I think it's important to note, like, it might not be that she didn't have it. She just didn't have the luxury of showing it because she was forced into this role of protector, provider.
And she was poor.
Have to take it up. I mean, you're right. I think the poverty aspect is true, but like you see that her mother, who could have taken up that role, right, is also is sentimental like Marianne. And so I've always read it as Eleanor made a concerted choice to do this, that she wasn't forced, that she decided that this was the best for her family, for herself, to get through this awful period of their life. She was going to step up and take that role.
If you're the oldest daughter, raise your hand.
That's true. Yeah.
I love that you said that though, Christina, because your book, The Year in Between, is about the year in between from the end of Sense and Sensibility to when Marianne gets married and everything. And you did do so much research for those, and so much your character arcs, they really were developed that wasn't in Sense and Sensibility. Like the after, we got to see so much more. And then even in my anthology, Rational Creatures, I don't know if you know this, Melissa, but Christina wrote Eleanor's story too, her kind of like backstory, and just how she was a rational creature, or how that parallel story. So I don't know. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
I need to go back and reread
that.
Hazel also says, away from the main cast, I would say Mrs. Croft and Mrs. Gardner. I love that quote that Mrs. Croft has, like, I don't know the exact, but none of us want to be in calm waters, that she says, like, she really, her life embodied being at least a forward living woman at the time, of not the typical stay-at-home domestic life.
And that makes me wonder, it's interesting that I really like that Hazel put both Mrs. Croft and Mrs. Gardner, because sometimes I do find myself thinking, well, probably not from choice, but Sophia Croft and, Admiral Croft, they didn't have children. And, so of course that maybe allowed her to kind of, again, that may not have been a choice. It may have been actually a great sadness to her as a character. I'm sure you could write a lot of great stories about that, but like that, whereas Mrs. Gardner did. And that's always made me think about mothers in Austen. Mm-hmm. I love like the mothers in Austen, and the question of, are there any forward-thinking mothers? And so Hazel points out Mrs. Gardner as an option, but I don't know. What do you all think? Are there any forward-thinking mothers, or are they all sort of just the kind of arbiters?
Pushing their children forward?
Yeah, exactly.
Mothers.
Yeah,
I think of there are. Yeah, I know. When I think of Austen's mothers, I always think of just the ones that they're always like trying to push their children forward to get them to a better life, a better social standing. Is that forward thinking? I don't know if that's necessarily forward thinking. That's just a survival.
Yeah, I was literally going to say the same thing, and then Hazel just commented for us. I think Mrs. Bennet, because she's not sitting back letting her husband take care of things, and I think she's forward thinking with trying to make these situations happen and not just accepting life as it comes by. Oh, me, I'm a poor woman, I'm, mother and wife, and I can't make these situations happen. I guess it's forward thinking to throw Jane on a horse and send her out in the rain.
Manipulate. That's one way. Because what is forward thinking? It is planning for the future. So she's planning for the future, for sure, trying to make sure that they are going to be safe. Someone's got to save them.
Here's a new one. So Mrs. Moreland, what do you think about her being a forward-thinking woman?
With all her children.
Yeah.
She does let Catherine go off into the city with other people. So rather than keeping her close to home,
she does say sensible things, but I don't know if that's enough to be forward thinking. But she does. She is a rational woman. That's for sure. She's not. all out there crazy, pushing them. But I do think that she is a rational person. Does that mean that she's necessarily forward? I don't know. I wonder why do you think she's forward?
Yeah, could you comment,
I know.
Nicole, and let us know your case for Mrs. Moreland. I could see some points to agree with you. I'm curious. I'll let you go ahead and comment first. And then we have, let's see, Mrs. Gardner seems to be a true partner with her husband. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I like that point a lot. And maybe that's also, I don't know if Nicole is thinking this too, but, we don't get to see as much of the Morelands, because of course, Catherine's off in Bath and doing her thing. But, that might also help qualify Mrs. Moreland, right? That partnership with her husband's, which would then in a way disqualify, depending on what you think, Mrs. Bennet, right? I mean, but that's not really her fault. So I like the idea of Mrs. Bennet, is trying to plan. That's an interesting point. I think though that Mrs. Gardner and maybe Mrs. Moreland, not only are they partners with their husbands, but I think they might recognize, that their daughters are people as well as like marriage prospects, which, I think that's where Mrs. Bennet, to me, fails a little bit on this test, which is that she's very much only concerned. Yeah, she's concerned with the immediate future of her daughters. And I think there's some benefit to that. And I admire her for that. But I think she can't see her daughters outside of, this idea of marriage. And so I think, to be a truly forward-thinking woman, maybe, or more broadly speaking, a forward-thinking woman, I think you have to be able to see yourself and other women as more than just marriage partners. That, as people to have, that you would respect, have conversations with, who might have hopes and dreams outside of obtaining a good match.
I think we maybe have levels of forward thinking, maybe, like this person's at the top, and then we kind of go down from here. So Mrs. Bennet makes the best of a bad situation. Not well, but she does her best. Absolutely. And Nicole says she is rational when she advises Catherine. So I guess you could make a case for even like rationally thinking something through and not making emotional choices to marry or what to do during that time period could possibly be forward thinking.
Well, all right, that way I am going to totally agree, because this book has got the anthology that we put together, for forward-thinking women or forward-thinking characters. It's full of maybe not loud, broad stroke feminist actions, but of making rational decisions and taking their own life and taking some control of it. So yeah, I'm gonna believe that. I could put her in that pile.
I think rationalism and forward thinking, if we're talking about the Regency era, could really kind of go hand in hand with each other. And I just had, what I love talking about Austen is I just had an epiphany, and I guess there's so many things that, you're never going to learn. Well, at least I'm never going to learn every integral part of all the novels, but sitting here talking about, I never really thought about the parents' marital relationship of our main characters. So we have the Bennets, who do not see eye to eye. We have Emma with just a father, no mother. We have Anne Elliot with just a father. We have Fanny's total situation there of just being with relation. What am I leaving out? So Northanger Abbey, she does have parents that we could make an argument for a case that they do get along with each other. And then Sense and Sensibility, we have a mother and no father. So I guess I never really sat and thought about the family life that a lot of them are coming from, that maybe pushed them into that forward thinking kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, because like despite the strengths of the women in Austen's novels, they're still subject to limitations because of their gender and social class and money. But the success of the stories is that they always they come to, regardless of their financial means, they somehow secure financial stability and social status by the end. By demonstrate, getting to their happily ever after in this fiction because of they choose a suitable partner based on mutual respect and their shared values. And in the end, they do get financial gain and everything. So then that is, the happily ever after in Austen's books. So I feel like, there is something to that, being rational and looking for themselves. So
Sarah commented, to Christina's point, I would suggest Miss Taylor is a forward-thinking mother figure since she allows Emma so much leeway to forge her own path. She supports her unique individuality.
Yeah, I think that's such an awesome point. Yeah, I think it's a really cool way to look at it. And, I think it's, thinking about Miss Taylor, thinking about, you mentioned, Emma's father, or you, Melissa, when you listed all the parents. I mean, I think the other thing we see is, of course, as an author, especially writing about young women coming of age and having to make these decisions, that, she is kind of Austen is confronted with the fact that she needs parents who are either at odds or maybe, have their failings, or who are kind of absent in some way, which, gives those young women agency, right? I mean, Catherine Morland has great parents. So what does Austen do? She takes Catherine and takes her away from her parents and puts her somewhere else, and in an influence of people like Isabella Thorpe, and who are not the greatest influences in the world, right? And says, what do you do now? I mean, my daughter is about to go to boarding school next year, so I'm thinking about this a lot. It's coming in my mind. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen when I'm not there? She'll probably be much better off. But anyways, but
you need to say all those things. It's like dropping them off at college. You need to be, telling them and you're just hoping that all the things that you've told them, that they're going to remember it when they need it. So yeah, right. I mean, I can see that when Catherine Morland's being sent off into, Girls Gone Wild with so
yeah. So it's really interesting to think about Emma then, who actually kind of is in the presence of people who are Miss Taylor is now she's married and she's away and she just has her father there, and so then she's faced with the question of, how do I now act on my own? How do I become a rational, forward-thinking woman myself, right, now that I no longer have that influence? For Elizabeth and Jane Bennet and Lydia Bennet, right? How do I become a forward-thinking woman or not? Now that,
I think if we're talking about Lydia, definitely not forward-thinking. There's no thinking. There's no planning ahead. It's just act and do. I always, whenever I talk about Catherine Morland, I always think, well, she turned out well, despite her father being named Richard. I just love the opening of that book. Makes me laugh every time. Although he was named Richard, and her sarcasm really coming out. I think
she really hated that name too, because I think she mentions that makes a joke about that too in Persuasion.
Yeah,
someone's dick in Persuasion too. I think it's somebody's son.
Oh, Musgrove. Anyway. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, he's the sailor who goes off there.
I wonder why she hated that name. Who knows? Someone, if you know, let us know.
Well, she also has her, and I'm not versed in this at all, but her history of England. There was quite a few. There's King Richard, so maybe she felt that they really did a disservice to the country or something.
That's right.
That's a good point. I'm always thinking there's some secret person that there's these secret people that came in and out of her life that her sister burned those letters too. Oh no. That's on the fire too.
Well, that's I recently read her letters, and that's what I loved. Some of it was really hard because I didn't understand. I felt guilty, almost like I was prying, but also that there's all this minutia of her life that I didn't quite understand. But I loved that on the one hand she was. You saw some of the language and the ideas that made her novel so forward thinking. And on the other hand, you see she's like, oh, I can't wait to get this bonnet or this material for this dress. And she's making kind of very snide remarks sometimes about neighbors to her sister. And she's just human.
Snarky remarks about people's hats and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. She's so human. And that's, I think, again, for me, it always comes down to depicting women as human beings instead of as morality tales was just such an important step in the history of literature, right? In English literature. And so that's
one of the things in the community that I really wanted to make Austen's letters come alive. So each month, if you are paying member in our community, you get an audio narration from Harry Frost or Stevie Zimmerman of Austen's letters. So each month we drop a new letter in. Harry had just messaged me the other day. He had sent me one of the letters and he was like, I am having so much fun really getting to know Austen and like trying to understand what's the inflection that she was thinking as she's writing this letter and how do I articulate that as I'm narrating it. So if you are interested in Austen's letters, it's been every time they send me a new narration, I can't wait to listen to it. And I listen to it a few times over because you really do get that experience. To me, it kind of feels like a Ken Burns documentary that you're listening to as you're hearing Austen.
So many times, like I'll have conversations with people that are not in the fandom, and they'll say, ask what my favorite book is, and I'll tell them Pride and Prejudice or whatever Austen book that I read most recently, and they'll be like, "Oh, I could not read that. I just could not understand it, the language, blah blah blah." And I'm like, trying to like figure out how to get these people into the fold without necessarily say, "Here, go watch the movie." I mean, you can, and there's nothing against that if that's going to help bring you to it. But I'm also like suggesting, well, get the audiobook because then, like, if it's a good narrator, their inflection and how they read certain lines, even things that just absolutely wouldn't make sense to you, it makes sense when someone else is reading it to you. And I'm always like, please, trying to reel in more people into the thing. Not that she needs any help with her fandom, but still, I feel like the more people I can chat about these things, the less deranged I might seem.
Absolutely.
You can all be crazy together just talking about it on a Saturday.
One of our Literacy Foundation ambassadors, Allison Larkin, she has the complete novels of Jane Austen narrated. So if you want to grab them all in one go and like listen through, I believe it's 81 hours that you get of Jane Austen narration. And then also she's narrated some of the juvenilia. So that's another perk that you get if you join the community. We have Leslie Castle in there so far for you to listen to, narrated by Allison.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I
listen to audiobooks all the time when I'm taking my dogs for a walk, and that's just the best thing I've heard yet. I'm gonna have to get that because it's just me and the dog, and I'll be entertained for 81 hours at least. How many dog walks is
that? So Hazel says, I have a theory about the Richard thing. It was Richard Crosby that did not print Susan Northanger Abbey. I like that theory, Hazel.
That's a great theory. Like Hazel asked a question a little while up, it looks like, about Austen's widows, rich widows, and I love that. You're right, because what if you chose not to remarry, you could hold on to your money. I don't know, Mrs. Jennings. Who would ever think of Mrs. Jennings as forward thinking from Sense and Sensibility? But maybe she was. I think she's definitely very funny. I love her as a character.
I love that when I have a character like that in my book too, where people are like, "Well, have you ever thought of getting married again?" She's like, because she's a two-time widow, and so it's just like, why would I? I have all the money I need. I don't need to have someone hand my money over to someone else and lose all say. So yeah, that was the thing. That would be forward thinking.
Well, and that raises my daughter was like, what about Catherine de Bourgh? And I guess Lady Catherine is a rich widow, right? She controls. But I don't know, other than being a rich widow, I have a hard time nominating Lady Catherine for anything.
I think she's a controlling, she's a controlling woman, but I don't know if she's forward. I think she's actually, in a weird sense, like backwards thinking woman, because she doesn't like change. She doesn't want, it's funny because I almost feel like she, calling people impertinent or whatever, like she doesn't want other women to shine at all. She very much wants them to stay in their place, but she's really comfortable because she is set up really pretty well for being a woman of that time period.
Yeah, she's not like the kind of woman that's going to lift up other women. She's going to be like, here, you go play the piano in the maid's room. She's not going to bother anybody there, that type of thing. And yeah, I don't think she's going to lift anybody up if it's not going to help her.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. Who do you think out of all of Austen's characters, and this is purely hypothetical, who do you think as a forward-thinking woman would translate well in modern time period? Who would be able to handle coming forward in time if we're doing time travel, Austen, purely for fun?
I have to plug, actually, and maybe I saw, Karen is just, I think is on the chat here. I love her version of Emma that takes place in the 1970s, so not quite modern. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the title. If I could write a book, I think.
I could write a book.
So it's not quite modern, but I thought Emma, and I can see why there's Clueless, and I think Emma is definitely a character that I think translates really well to the modern world.
I never liked that book that much, or I didn't really like Emma as a character that much until Karen wrote that book, and I just saw Austen's Emma in a totally different way. Like, she just shone a different light on her. It was like someone was reading the book to me totally differently. And she's a caregiver, but she's because I used to think she was just super officious, almost like a Lady Catherine type person, and she's just like, no, you are going to date this person, and this is what's going to happen, and all of those things, and she's just handsome and rich, and she can do whatever she wants. But I kind of saw her as more of a caregiver, and because she does have money, that she could help her friends that way. And so that's Karen's book was excellent for me that way. Plus her Mr. Knightley was
I might not have just seen them. Maybe they're out there, but I feel like Anne Elliot could translate pretty well, because I think a lot of us could identify with her people pleaser sort of personality, and that's very relatable. And then kind of, I almost picture, this guy look like the family's looking at him as a deadbeat, and then he goes off and becomes something bigger and better, and then she comes around too. And betters herself in her life. I think Anne could translate well to modern times.
Yeah, I think that's another really good choice there. I think, and especially, I know I read Persuasion when I was in my mid to late 20s for the first time. I came to Austen a little bit later in my life. And I think that, as an adult, Anne Elliot is a character who I think is really relatable. She's the last novel that she finished, right? That Austen finished, at least. Do I have that correct? And so there is a way in which, like, Anne is, you're right, she's modern also in terms of adulthood, right? Which is something that kind of carries forward. It's not the same thing as modern, but you could see that an adult woman was writing this, like she was Austen was middle-aged woman, or, writing about a woman. And I think that just carries through so well to today.
I want to catch up on a couple comments here. So Joy, thank you for joining us. Don't worry about being tardy. She is coming from Oregon. And then, so we have the challenge with Anne is her passivity, at least at first. And I think that's what makes her, to me, really relatable and actually a great forward thinking, because I think most of us do not come into adulthood as a forward-thinking woman. You kind of, like, life has to happen to you, and then you realize, like, oh man, it's real life now. And then you start finding your own personality and your own place in this crazy world. And how are you going to express yourself? How are you going to, fit into a partnership, a marriage, whatever it is, and be a woman in your own place? And I think that's why Anne would make a great modern character.
I totally can see that. I mean, I could see easily Elizabeth Bennet fitting into the modern world. And I feel like Mary Crawford would, I'm going back to Mary. I feel like she would totally be able to slide right into this century, just because she is kind of she is a survivor, just the upbringing she had. And moral compass issues and all of that type of, she is self-centered, but she is a complex character. And I think that she really, she would be able to navigate in modern times. Yeah, I'm going with Mary.
So we have Sarah says Charlotte Lucas should be a Fortune 500 CEO. Hazel would like to know, how would Charlotte Lucas be forward thinking? So I think you could say her survival instincts, to a sense, would be forward thinking at the time. Like, she makes the situation happen. She doesn't just kind of wait for life to play out. she sees the opportunity and grabs it no matter what it is.
Otherwise, what else was she going to do? Just going to be dependent on her family. And I mean, and she does have her own comfortable sitting room and run of her own house. And she tells her husband, here, go off into the garden. And she knows how to manage him. That's for sure. Poor woman.
I know.
I think it's interesting to think about, like, you know, that yes, and marriage is such a gamble at this time, right? Because the possibility of getting out of what could be a bad marriage is just not very easy. I mean, I wonder about, I think somebody in the comments said that Karen maybe said Charlotte is an ultimate pragmatist. And, you know, I think that whether that made her forward thinking at the time or not, I love like Sarah's idea that she'd be a Fortune 500 CEO today. I wonder about, that makes me think about, Melissa, to your question about who might translate to the modern world. Like, what if Lydia could have, I mean, Lydia was 15. I think about that a lot. I mean, she would, like, today, that whole storyline with Wickham, I mean, it would play very differently, right? And like, you know, what would Lydia be like?
They'd be all the way.
As an adult, like, would she have the chance to sort of become a forward-thinking woman later in her life, you know, in a different time period?
Yeah, I love when I see Lydia kind of compared to in modern times, she might be an influencer because, like, you know, she's crafting, she's got her hats, like she's all about TikTok, filming herself. Like, of course, Lydia's going to be in love with being in front of the camera. I think that would be a lot of fun. And this conversation has been so much fun to just see everyone's different ideas of what is forward thinking. I still think, you know, we all have our own definition of what is forward thinking. I think we came up with a lot more characters than I expected to that show forward thinking characteristics. So that's been just a lot of fun to see as well. Christina, did you have any questions for us? I didn't want to neglect you because we kind of like hijacked it and took this whole conversation across. Did you have any directions that you want? Yes, sorry, Christina Boyd. Did you have any directions for forward-thinking women that you wanted to get out there?
Not really. I'm just enjoying the chat. So I'm just learning a lot too. So
absolutely.
And I actually just saw the comments on here. So yeah.
No worries.
Well, everybody over there.
We've got about 13 minutes left to go. So I did put together a little bit of trivia for us to do. While I'm doing the trivia, I cannot see the comment section. So if you two can see it and kind of help me along as we go. Last time we did questions all the way through, and then we did the answers afterwards. This time we're going to mix it up. Let me know, anyone that's watching in real time, if you like this setup. You can even, I guess, let me know afterwards as well. But we'll do the question. I'll give you a few seconds to answer, and then I'll give you the answer after that. And we can even get into a discussion as we go if you want. I'm happy to hang around for a little while longer if you two don't have anywhere to be and we go a little over, if that's fine with you. We'll see where the trivia leads. All right, so I have kind of a mix. Today's theme is quotes and who said it, and then we have some location questions. We have all ranges, so don't worry if you're new to Austin. There's a few ones that will hopefully be easier for you. There are some that the quotes I feel like you really have to know your Austin. So take your best guess. Let's just have fun with it. And we will be giving away some book plates from the community. So everyone that's been commenting as we go, you will be eligible, and it'll be open for the next 48 hours to be entered into our book plate drawing. So if you haven't seen them over on our website, there's custom book plates with different Austin themes on there. And those proceeds go to the Literacy Foundation and everything that we do over there. So you can check them out. All right, let's start with our first question here. So our quote is, "Oh, I always deserve the best treatment because I never put up with any other." And forgive me not ending the quotes there when I was typing them out. So I'll give you guys, I feel like we need Jeopardy music playing in the background.
Just shout it out if we know the answer?
All right, does everybody have their answers? I will go ahead and show. Christina Boyd, do you want to give us your answer?
That's my favorite. Isn't that Mary Crawford?
It is Emma to Mr. Knightley.
Wait, go back.
This is why I love There Is No Shame in Austen, because there's so much to know. So do not feel bad, anyone. I only know these because I put them together. I wouldn't even get all these.
Say it again. Say it again.
They always deserve the best treatment because I never put up with any other.
Oh, it does sound like Mary Crawford, though. But yes, it's Emma. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, the next one here, in Pride and Prejudice, what is the name of Mr. Darcy's estate? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Go ahead and get your
I'm not going to say anything because I'll probably get this one wrong.
There's no shame whatsoever.
No, I mean, you can't get that one. I know that one for sure.
We have Pemberley as Mr. Darcy's estate.
I always say that if my daughter was born like 5 years later, when I was really, really getting into Austen and fan fiction, that would have been her name.
I love it.
She's like, no, I hate that, Mom. I'm called then, Pem.
Yeah.
The amount of friends I have with cats named Mr. Knightley is kind of hilarious to me.
Wow. I would think a cat name would be Wickham. That would be a really good cat name.
No, as a cat parent, I'm deeply offended by that.
I was going to say, although my youngest kitten could be named Wickham with as bad as he's done this week. He's a very, very naughty cat. Is there anything in the comments that we need to go? Is everybody doing great? Are you answering as we're going?
Looks like they've all got some good.
Everybody's good. No one's
awesome. And tell me, let us know.
Mary Crawford, so I'm good.
Let's see here. Joy did say, "Oops, it ended. Will it reconnect?" So I'm not sure if Joy got, but maybe she'll be able to come back.
Okay, hopefully that's just on her end because I think we're going on fine. All right, our quote is, "I cannot talk of books in a ballroom. My head is always full of something else."
I like this quote a lot.
I'll go ahead and give everybody a few seconds to answer. All right, and our answer is Elizabeth Bennet. That was actually a quote that I had not seen pulled that many times, and I really like it. It's going to be one of my
I do too, because it reminds me too that Elizabeth, like Jane Austen, like writing those letters, you know, she's definitely a reader. You know, but she's multifaceted. She likes to go out there and party a little bit too. I don't. I would not be an Elizabeth Bennet, I have to say, but I really like Elizabeth.
And I like that she kind of is like, I love books, but like when I'm partying, I want to party. Okay.
I don't know if I'm Elizabeth Bennet, but I do like to be by myself and take my little walks and have all my books and all of that. But if you invite me, I'll come out and I'll be chatty.
Sociable. So our quote is,
I don't know if I'm witty, but I'll be chatty.
The more I know of the world, the more, that might have been a typo. I don't know if that's an exact quote. The more I am convinced that I shall never see a man whom I can really love. I require so much. All right, we'll let everybody get their answers. I need Christina to edit me when I write out these. I'm typing. All right. And our answer is Marianne Dashwood.
Yeah.
She's so poetic. So dramatic. All right. Next we have, there is nothing I would not do for those who are really my friends. I have no notion of loving people by halves. It is not in my nature. I'll let everybody go ahead. And it is Isabella Thorpe. She's such an interesting character. I cannot stand her. I feel like there's a lot to dig in with her.
And what I love is like, that's one of those quotes. Same with, there's a quote from Caroline Bingley that's often quoted. Like that quote from Isabella Thorpe and one from Caroline Bingley about books. They're often put on like t-shirts, or I have a mug with those quotes on them. And I always think it's so funny because I'm like, actually, if you think about it in the context of the book, Austen was completely laughing at that right there, right? Yes. Isabella is not really a great friend.
It's so true. They're very satirical statements, but we love them anyway. So I think people enjoy using them.
Yeah.
All right.
Next we have context and putting them onto themselves.
Yes.
Which is also funny then.
Yes.
Laugh as much as you choose, but you will not laugh me out of my opinion. I don't think I would have got this one if I wasn't putting the trivia together. All
I
right.
know all of these, but I am not getting them all out of context now. I'm like, who is
That's
that?
what is
so
really
familiar.
difficult. Yeah. I like hearing them out of context because it's kind of fun because it surprises you when you're not just reading it and you see it. And the answer is Jane Bennett.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a very strong statement from Jane. You don't often see her asserting herself.
This is a lot of pressure. Like I used to think that, I could go on Jeopardy and I would get all of those questions if they were all like a Jane Austen thing. I'm thinking, I don't know. You take them all out of context. And I'm like, I don't know.
I know. We, as a family, we go play music trivia and they give you like a clip from the middle of a part of the song. It is so hard to know without like, I need the whole flow of the song or like the book. Like I need to be reading through the book to know who it is. All right, here's not a quote one for you, both Christinas. What is the name of the estate where the Dashwood sisters reside in Sense and Sensibility after their father's death? Did either of you watch the Hallmark Sense and Sensibility that they have?
I haven't seen
January?
it yet.
No, I haven't seen it.
Mixed reviews, but I definitely want to see it when I figure out how to see Hallmark on my
It's worth watching just for an opinion. I'll reserve my opinion. It could be a topic for another day.
I just figure it's Hallmark, so I'm sorry, Hallmark. I just go in with low expectations. Sorry if there's anybody out there that is a big Hallmark fan.
The answer is Barton Cottage. All right. We are almost to the end here. So we have a large income is the best recipe for happiness I ever heard of. We've talked about this character today many times.
I'm afraid to say.
Let's say it together. Mary Crawford. So she's definitely thinking about money and forward thinking about the situation she wants to be in.
She has all the best lines. You could just Google her and just Google Mary Crawford's best lines and you will be entertained for like 10 minutes just thinking and saying, I wish that was on my shirt. I wish I had that on a mug.
That's a quote that you could completely see in one of Austen's letters, right? So yeah, I wonder how much she used Mary Crawford and characters like her to kind of really get out some of her own thoughts.
Which Jane Austen novel features the character Captain Frederick Wentworth? Christina, if you do not get this one.
I know this one. That's why I'm not saying anything, though.
The answer is Persuasion. If you have never read if you've never read Persuasion or you read it when you were younger, always give it a reread or read for the first time because it is the one that most often I have people say you didn't appreciate it when you read it when you were younger and you really, really resonates with you. I think like 30s and on, you can really start to kind of understand Anne and a lot of her choices that she made in life. All right, and our final question.
What do you recommend after Pride and Prejudice? I always say Persuasion. I always say that. It's just an easy go-to. You can relate to every single thing that happens there. It translates so well.
Absolutely. And then our last question is, what is the name of the village where the events of Emma primarily take place? Everybody got their answer? And it is Highbury. Yay, good job. Let us know if you were keeping track in the comments. How many did you get right? Did you do pretty well this time? Last time I gave a bit more multiple choice, so let me know if for the quotes you would have preferred to have multiple choice or if you liked just taking a guess. Well, it looks like so we had a lot of people commenting. That is awesome. I'm glad to see everybody was participating. That's one thing I really love with Austen is enjoy it, have zero expectations because it's impossible to know everything. Just have fun, read the books any way that is accessible for you. So like you said, the audiobooks, if you have a difficult time, I mean, it's not easy. The farther we get away from the language of that time period, the sentence structures, different than we use now. Sometimes it can be difficult to read through that. no shame in watching the movies to get the context of what's going on as well. I know that really was my transition into Austen, was watching the 95 BBC Pride and Prejudice. Then I, discovered Austen novels and all that after that. So I think just enjoy it, enjoy the community of it, have fun, enjoy fan fiction if that's your thing too. Check out both Christina's books. I'll drop in the comments link to both of your websites as well if people want to head over and check out what you have to offer. Sophie said, I missed too many, LOL. There is not too many to miss. It was a learning experience, if nothing else. And I'm sure I would have missed a few as we were going. Like Christina Boyd said, seeing them out of context can be really tricky. And I think make us see it in a new light as well. So thank you to everyone that joined us for the trivia portion and participated and commented. Put yourself out there. Way to go. Oh, Hazel says, I first saw the 1967 Pride and Prejudice. That's amazing. I think the movies are just truly a testament to of how much we resonate with Austen's characters and how truly great a job she did at like us even seeing these women as being forward thinking. I think some of them, even in today's standards, we would still consider them to be forward thinking choices for a lot of women. Nicole says, I am reading Mansfield Park right now. Well, enjoy and go look up all those quotes from Mary Crawford. Quickly before we leave, I just wanted to let you all know or see if you haven't yet. So in our community, we have our new bookmarks are up. Sorry, it's hard on the computer camera here, but hopefully you can see. So this is part of a 3-piece set that we have. The first one just released for this month. So you will get the bookmark, and then you will also get the book plates. These are digital copies, so they're yours to print out as many times as you want. If you want to add the bookmarks to your Austen novels, to your fan fiction, to all of your other books, have added. As a member of the community, you will continue to get a new set each month as we go of the bookmarks and of the book plates. Your support helps us to support literacy efforts around the world. I know it's something I am so passionate about because truly I believe giving a child the opportunity to read affects the entire rest of their life. You just think of every subject in school that you study, how much more difficult that is if you're not able to read. Children in locations that have gone through wars, that don't have access to books, you're truly changing a life by being a part of the community and helping us support these literacy efforts. So if that is something that you would like to be a part of, we have lots of reading community things that are going on, lots of fun. If you enjoy hanging out like this and chatting with other readers, we don't just talk about Austen. So we have things for readers of all genres that you can join us for. Just be someone that enjoys books, wants to talk about books, is just getting into reading, reads 200 books a year. It doesn't matter. You can come and join us on there. Thank you to both Christinas so much. I had an absolute blast talking with both of you today and really getting to see a whole new perspective on some of these characters.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad I finally got to talk to you, Christina. After all this time, it's been lovely to actually, for real, I'm going to meet you in real life one day. I am. And Melissa, thank you. You saved me so many times. Melissa does my, helps manage my newsletter and my website. So anything there, she's just amazing. A total pro. And I'm very grateful for all the help.
Thank you.
And for having me here. This was kind of fun. It's not my necessarily my best thing, but I did have fun.
You were great, Christina. Thank you so much for having us both. I mean, it was wonderful. And again, what the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation does is fantastic. So thank you for inviting us to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone that took the time to hop on for an hour and join us and participate and comment. You help make these activities and events so much more enjoyable because we love connecting with you. Thank you to everyone that left the thank yous in the comments. If you're watching this later, I hope you enjoy it. as much as we did. We will end with thank you from our founder, Caroline Jane Knight. She is the 5th great niece of Jane Austen and was the last of the Austens to grow up at Chawton House. You can catch her in our community events that we do live on there as well. So everyone have a great rest of your day, whatever time it is for you, because it was fun to have people from all over the world. We will see you for the next event. Don't forget to check out both Christina's, and take care. Happy reading.
Thank you.
Thank you.